So today I want to tackle an intervention that is actually a meta intervention. And this is what I like to call metric development. And the importance of metric development is when you create an intervention to change behavior, to change business systems, whatever type of intervention it is, we often jump to ideas. We often have all these great tactics and strategies in mind without really realizing what the root cause of the problem is. And the root cause of the problem should be something that is identifiable and it is measurable. So if you do a little bit of extra research from the start and you really flesh out the root cause of a problem, then it's going to be a lot easier to create an intervention around that that really tackles this problem thoroughly on a systemic level. And we're going to dive into this today by using this intervention that I call metric development. And we're going to use a case study to make it all very concrete. But this is something that you should always keep in the back of your mind. Develop powerful metrics that help you keep track of the root cause. Let's dive into it. So what we see in intervention design, and especially with behavioral interventions, when we try to change human behavior, these interventions are often not evidence-based enough. So oftentimes someone reads a cool paper or an article or a book and has some type of hypotheses that will drive an intervention. You know, we really think that human motivation is going to be driven by factor A in our organization. So we're gonna design an intervention around that. And of course that is great, but what is even more important is that you have solid evidence to back it up. So do your desk research and your due diligence, but also make sure that it's not just the academic publications backing you, but also your organizational context. What evidence can you find in your organization? And I'm talking about quantitative data, so numbers that you can find, statistics that you can find, but also qualitative data, stakeholders that you can talk to. What is the evidence that you collect to base your intervention on? Now, a bigger problem, some might say, is that interventions are not driven by metrics. Now, this is a big problem because if you cannot drive your intervention implementation with strong metrics, then you have no idea whether what you're doing actually works. You don't know if your intervention is moving the needle if you don't know what numbers to look at. You have to measure to make sense of it. But the problem is, and this is something that's very, very common in the world of growth. We often fall for what is called vanity metrics, what are called vanity metrics. So these are metrics that are not actually measuring the root cause, but are just giving us a nice image of how good our intervention is. So we're going to dive into that a little bit deeper because those last 2 points, not being driven by metrics and not being aimed at the root cause, can be tackled with the same strategy. So to make this very concrete again, I'm going to walk you through a case study that we've seen in the world of diversity and inclusion. So this is a very, very popular field that's incredibly important in business and society. And what we see, we work a lot in diversity and inclusion with companies in the government and in the private sector. And what we see is that there is often so much passion that is driving diversity and inclusion interventions, which is really good. There's a lot of buy-in, especially from the D&I professionals. But oftentimes this dilutes our attention to having diversity and inclusion interventions that are really evidence-based and are really metric-driven. So this case describes firm A, and firm A notices that they have an oversaturation of men in upper management. So there are too many male employees that have upper management positions and too few female employees. So what they do is they want to dive into this and create an intervention, but first they really want to make sure what the root cause is. So they dive into the data, and by tracking entry-level cohorts from the past 10 years, so really they really go all out here, they find that men and women, they enter the firm around a 50-50 ratio. So the entry-level cohorts all seem quite diverse when it comes down to male-female, when it comes down to men and women, because it's 50-50. So that is not where the problem is. So hiring and recruitment is relatively safe on this issue. Then what they see is that around the 5-year mark of the career trajectory of these employees, men become more likely than women to be promoted. So when a random employee is there for around 5 years, if this employee is a man, then their chances are way more likely that they are promoted than if they are women. And this is a problem. This is also pinpointing where the problem is. So now they have a temporal marker, around 5 years, we see a problem occurring. So now they know where to deep dive. So in this 5-year mark, they really dive into it. And what they find using the following approach is this. They identify and develop the metrics that are needed. They implement an evidence-based intervention, and then they iterate and optimize. So this is an approach that you want to keep top of mind all the time. Identify your metrics, then you implement an intervention, then you iterate and optimize. So going back to that case study, around this 5-year mark, they see a problem. And what they do is they review all the criteria that are being used at this 5-year mark for making a promotion. And what they see is that in order to be further promoted, managers around the 5-year mark need to match this criteria of an X amount of project lead hours. So this is normal, right? In every high-level firm, you see that if you want to be an upper level manager, you just need to have experience leading projects. So they dissect this data, and what they find is that this is the key metric, the key benchmark that they have used to select managers for upper management. Now, what is the problem here? They find that the root cause is that high-performing women spend way more time as co-leads than men do. And this is not being counted as full lead hours. Now, this is a big problem because co-leads and leads do the exact same thing usually, especially in this firm that we built this case around. It's just that there are 2 people in the lead. So in their business system, in which they find these criteria, these benchmarks for upper management, they have a flaw, they have a bias. They're biased towards full lead hours instead of co-lead hours. And the 2 have a completely similar role. A co-lead is just as important for the project than a lead is. So now that they have identified this root cause in systems, and this is what's really important, they are not looking for the root cause in human behavior. Because a big pitfall in diversity and inclusion is to put the cause of the problems at minority groups, at people that are being treated by business or systems in a negative way, and saying, we are going to train you, we are going to help you change. They are not the problem. The business systems are almost always the problem. And systems and context usually drives behavior. So what they need to do is change the system. And this is what they did. So now they developed this metric, this benchmark, the hours, co-lead hours. And what they did was update it in such a way that this benchmark now includes co-lead hours as well. So again, this is a very small tweak to an existing HR system that evaluates employees. And what they see is that by including co-lead hours and lead hours under the same criteria, they see a great result in their management. They see that the oversaturation of males is being driven down. So they see positive results, not by focusing on human behavior and putting the cause at the minority groups, in this case, women as employees, but by tweaking and optimizing their business systems in such a way that they're more equitable and more inclusive. So this is just a case that really highlights the importance of metric development, because they could have come up with all these ideas, all these intervention ideas, train female employees, train women that are high potential in upper management skills, maybe form an employee resource group to help them develop even further. This is all good, this is beneficial, but this is not the root cause. The root cause is not with the minority group. Instead of that, they really dove deep into their business systems. They looked at what the root cause is and which metrics are key for that. And then they developed a metric in which they could really see improvements. They could really see if this intervention, tweaking the business system, co-lead lead hours, had an effect. So in short, it's as easy as identify those metrics. Make sure you have your key metric. Do the due diligence for that. Implement an evidence-based intervention. And this could be a simple tweak. This could be a huge program. This could be anything. This is a topic that we can discuss at length in another video. And then iterate and optimize. And that 3rd step is incredibly important because, of course, the oversaturation of male managers is not going to be resolved fully with just one tweak. But now you have a really clear field, a really clear vision of what metrics to look for. So you iterate and you optimize, and you keep looking for that key metric, and because that is so incredibly important, metric development. All right, I'll see you next time in another video. If you want us to make a video about a certain behavioral topic, feel free to reach out, and we'll see you soon on this channel. Goodbye.